Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. Guys, Frank Warren has made a comment which I find very interesting. And actually something that I wanted to talk about. And something that I have mentioned briefly about Canelo Saunders. Frank Warren said that I give Billy Joe Saunders more chance of beating Canelo Alvarez than Eddie Hearn. Now, I found that kind of hilarious because obviously Frank Warren's taking a dig at Hearn, basically telling him that, listen, we all know you want Canelo to win this fight. You don't want Saunders to win this fight. And listen, we can all see how Canelo and Eddie Hearn, their new promoter-fighter romance at the minute, has been going on. And you can clearly see they're both loving it. Canelo's calling him the best promoter in the world. Eddie Hearn saying that this guy's so easy to work with. He's the best fighter I've seen up close. And listen, he probably is. I'm not going to deny that. The fact that, you know, Eddie Hearn saying that Canelo's the best fighter he's seen up close, it's the truth. Like, who's Eddie Hearn worked with over the years that is as good as Canelo? Nobody. So, of course, he's right in saying that. Canelo is the best fighter. I don't think he's worked with a fighter anywhere near as good as Canelo. So, you know, he's right in what he's saying, that, you know, Canelo is probably the best fighter that he's seen up close. But in terms of Frank Warren's comment about wanting Eddie wanting Canelo to win or basically saying that Billy Joe Saunders, he's giving him more chance than Hearn is giving Saunders. And I agree. Eddie doesn't want Saunders winning this fight. Of course, obviously they're going into a fight and anything's possible. Saunders pulls off the upset, he pulls it off. You know, if Saunders ends up knocking Canelo out, Hearn can't stop that. But deep inside, Hearn wants Canelo to win this fight. Hearn's loving the new relationship, and he knows that Canelo's one of the biggest stars in the sport. He's already negotiating the undisputed fight for Canelo with Caleb Plant. That tells you everything, who Eddie Hearn wants to win this fight. Now, if Billy Joe somehow sculptures those plans and ended up beating Canelo, then so be it. That can happen. It's boxing. But Eddie Hearn wants this relationship with Canelo to extend. And you can't blame him. Like, to be honest with you, I know a lot of people are going to give Hearn stick that, oh, he's a sellout. He's favoring Canelo. Billy's got it all to do. Listen, you can't blame him. Canelo's the biggest star in the sport. Who wouldn't? If Frank Warren was in Eddie Hearn's place, Frank Warren would be doing exactly the same thing. You know, Canelo is the biggest star in the sport, right? Who you got more commercial mileage from? Saunders or Canelo? It's quite obvious. As a promoter, when you're looking at Canelo, you see dollar signs. Billy Joe Saunders doesn't have that kind of, financial mileage. He hasn't got that kind of superstardom that Canelo's got. You know, Canelo has a whole country behind him. Imagine some of the stuff that that Hearn could do with Canelo. He could go and put on a fight in Mexico with 120,000 fans. Like, he could break boundaries with Canelo. Canelo's the biggest star in the sport. He's big for me. He's the bigger star than Joshua. Honestly, he's a way, way bigger star. And most importantly, it's not about how big a star he is. We all know, fair enough, it's debatable who's a bigger star, him and Joshua. He's the better fighter over Joshua. There's a chance that Joshua could lose. Canelo could lose. Anyone can lose in boxing, but Canelo's more... There's more, in my opinion, there's more chance of Canelo staying undefeated and unbeaten till the end of his career. And it's very unlikely. I don't see anyone beating Canelo. He's that good right now. He's pound for pound the best in the world. He's the best fighter in the world, in my opinion. Joshua's not that. So Eddie Hearn knows that bubble could be burst. If he fights Fury, it could be done. If Fury knocks him out or Fury beats him well, Joshua's star appeal is going to drop, right? Whereas with Canelo, you know you've got an asset there, and the chances of him being beat are very unlikely at the minute. It doesn't look likely. He looks unbeatable right now, Canelo. So Hearn knows he's got something there. He's got dollar signs, and a guy that's financial mileage is on another level. And not just that, at the minute, he looks a formidable fighter that's not probably unlikely to be beaten by any other competition around. So you can't blame Eddie Hearn backing Canelo and wanting Canelo to win. Listen, Hearn's not going to openly come out and say, I want Canelo to win this fight, because he's representing Billy Joe. Billy Joe is represented by Matchroom. So he's not going to openly say who he wants to win. But deep inside, it's quite clear to see the fact that, the way Eddie Hearn is, clearly praising Canelo, and the way Hearn is going out of his way and looking to make the undisputed fight, and the fact that he's open about it, that he's going out there to, negotiate a deal with Caleb Plant, clearly shows that he's already negotiating the next fight after Billy Joe Saunders. So he's not really giving Billy much of a chance of winning, because he's already focused on the fight after. Now, promoters are focused on the fight after. Hearns mentioned this before, that promoters are always planning ahead for their fighters. But I'm pretty sure Billy Joe Saunders isn't going to be liking the fact that Eddie Hearn is already negotiating a fight with Caleb Plant. Because Billy Joe Saunders can say, there's no rematch clause. Billy Joe Saunders can say, all right, why aren't you negotiating? If I beat Canelo, why are you negotiating me fighting Caleb Plant for the undisputed? Right? Because like I said, he wants Canelo to win. Canelo is the star here. So it's quite obvious that Eddie Hearn will want him to win. Now, that's for Billy Joe Saunders to upset the odds. And most importantly, Canelo's the favorite in the fight. He's favored by everybody to win. And he's working with Hearn. Obviously, if Canelo wasn't working with Hearn, then Eddie Hearn wouldn't be saying the things. He wouldn't be going negotiating, because he doesn't work for Canelo. But right now, Eddie Hearn is working for Canelo, and he's got a 2-fight deal with Hearn. The last fight is against Billy Joe Saunders. So Eddie Hearn is trying to do something extra, because really his deal with Canelo ends after this fight with Saunders. But he wants to be in Canelo's good book, so Canelo ends up extending that relationship. And it looks like they are going to extend that relationship. I can see Canelo Alvarez finishing his career with Hearn. To be honest, I do agree with Canelo's what he said about Hearn, that he's the best promoter in the world. I do believe Eddie Hearn is the best promoter in the world right now. I think he's expanding at a crazy rate. I think the way he promotes is unbelievable. And I think he's got the biggest stars in his stable right now. Eddie Hearn is on another level now from a promotional standpoint, not just in the UK. Before, people said he's the best promoter in the UK. No, he's the best promoter in the world, in my opinion. Who's got as in-depth and as large a stable as Eddie Hearn's got? I don't think anyone. And not just that, he's got the 2 biggest stars in the sport in Joshua and Canelo. Yeah, Fury's a big star now as well, and his star's growing, and Top Rank's got him. But at the end of the day, really, when you got Joshua and Canelo, and then you got a heap of other fighters, and then everybody wants to work with Eddie Hearn. Like, everybody wants to work. Now, you've heard, like, Amir Khan's coming. He's going to have a meeting with Hearn this week. He's not promoted by Hearn. He's not got a contract with Hearn. He could work with anybody, Top Rank, Queensbury, anyone. But he's having a meeting with Eddie Hearn. Why? Because he knows Eddie Hearn's more likely to get him the best deal, the biggest purse, and he's got most of the fighters. So Eddie Hearn's going to be able to make any fight out there that he wants. You see? So every fighter wants to work with Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn's got the fighters. He pays well. There's no messing around, right? And you can have fight-to-fight deals with him. Like, Canelo might not even have a contract. He might never have a contract with Hearn. But I can see him working with Hearn from now till the end of his career, just fight-to-fight basis. Because, like I said, Hearn's a type of guy where he's the type of guy where you don't have to have a paper contract with him. He does things over a handshake. And he's quite a fair guy. You haven't heard of fighters come out and say, well, he's robbed me. I think Eddie Hearn is taking on a lot at the minute, and I do think there's certain fighters that are struggling to get out. But that's probably how large Eddie Hearn's stable is. He's got such a large stable, right? But yeah, coming back to the point about Canelo and Saunders, yeah, Billy Joe Saunders is going to have it all to do, because Canelo Alvarez is promoted by Eddie Hearn, and it's quite clear that Eddie wants Canelo to win this fight. And he's already promoting ahead of him. Like, he's already planning ahead for Canelo. He's not planning ahead for Saunders, because obviously Saunders he is obviously the underdog in this fight, and not many people are giving him a chance to win. But you can't blame, like I said, I keep saying it, you can't blame Eddie Hearn wanting Canelo to win. That he's like the biggest star in the sport. The dollar signs, like you see dollar signs everywhere with Canelo. You can break boundaries with Canelo. You can't. If Saunders beats Canelo, then, you know, Saunders becomes a huge star. But still, I don't think he has that kind of star appeal that Canelo has, even if he was to win. Yeah, he might be able to sell out stadiums, but Hearn's already done that. Hearn wants to now break boundaries. Hearn loves to break boundaries. It's not all about like Saunders isn't going to become a bigger star than AJ is if he beats Canelo. And what's he going to do? You know, here in the UK, Canelo is a huge star over the stateside. So Eddie Hearn is yet to break boundaries in America, right? With the fact that he's got the biggest star from that region, right, gives him a great chance of being able to break boundaries, going to Mexico, having huge fights in America. Hearn can do that with Canelo because he's the biggest star from that part. Just like he's doing with Joshua in the UK, he can do exactly the same thing with Canelo. They're in Mexico and they're in America. And Eddie Hearn will do that, because that's what I'm saying. Eddie Hearn is in my opinion, he gets excited by trying to break boundaries, by trying to do things that others haven't done in the past. And as Eddie Hearn said, he wants to make Canelo an even bigger star, and I believe he'll do it. I believe he'll do it because, like I said, I don't think the energy and the promotional skills that Eddie Hearn's got is anyone else has got it. I don't think they have at the minute. The kind of energy and investment that he puts into his fighters, I don't really see that from a whole heap of other promoters. I see a lot of fighters getting paid well, but I see their profile's not that great. I see them not being that famous. Only the hardcores know who they are. And although Canelo's known by a lot of casuals as well, Eddie Hearn probably feels that he's not known by enough casuals. He could be an even bigger star with the kind of the level of fighter he is. He should be even bigger star than what he is. And he's probably right. And Eddie Hearn's going to try to make him a bigger star. But in terms of coming back to this fight, yeah, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, someone was asking me on my Instagram the other day that, is Eddie Hearn favoring Canelo? Yeah, for all the reasons I just mentioned. Now, there's not going to be no, you know, Hearn's not going to be doing anything dodgy. Of course not. You know, he's going to be hoping for we're hoping as fans for a fair fight. But at the end of the day, you've got to understand that, you know, Canelo's a superstar, and he brings a lot of dollars and he brings a lot of money and attention to his fights. Eddie Hearn is going to be planning ahead because he doesn't want Canelo to leave. Even though I don't think Canelo will leave him, he wants to do all he can from his side to ensure that Canelo is happy with him, right? Because he wouldn't want, like, if Saunders was to leave Hearn, right, Eddie's not going to care. If Canelo was to leave Eddie Hearn, right, it's going to affect him because he's the biggest star in the sport. So it's going to hurt more because he knows that the kind of financial mileage Canelo has. Saunders doesn't have that kind of mileage. And basically what Frank Warren was pointing out is the fact that Eddie Hearn doesn't think Saunders is going to win the fight. He doesn't, and he probably doesn't want Saunders to win the fight. So Frank Warren is just taking advantage of the situation, the fact that he can see that Canelo and Hearn have got a great relationship and the way they've been talking about each other. Warren's just firing shots saying that you don't want Saunders to win that fight. You want Canelo to win that fight, and you're not giving him much of a chance to win. I'm giving him a better chance to win. And maybe Frank wants Saunders to come back. Maybe Frank wants to work with Billy Joe Saunders. However, I don't think it would be, even if Saunders was to lose to Canelo, I don't think it would be a wise move. Because I think Eddie Hearn's got all the fighters, if I'm honest with you. Frank Warren is going to be, again, difficult for Saunders to get those fights. Listen, how hard has it been for Saunders, right, to get fights under Eddie Hearn? Right, with Frank Warren, who hasn't got many of the fighters at all, right, at light heavyweight, you know, he has got a good relationship with Top Rank, but who have Top Rank got at super middleweight or middleweight? Who have they got? I don't know any. I think these two divisions are PBC, Eddie Hearn, Golden Boy have some, and again, Eddie Hearn has a good relationship with Golden Boy, so he can make the fights. Who have Top Rank or Queensbury got that could make for a good fight? You know, we now know that Chris Eubank, who's a potential rival and potential fight if Saunders was to lose, for Billy Joe Saunders, and Eddie Hearn works with the Sauerlands very closely, so that fight can be made like that. So it wouldn't be wise for Billy Joe Saunders, even if he was to lose against Canelo, to leave and go to Frank Warren. It just wouldn't, in my opinion. That said, I think Frank Warren would have a decent relationship with Carlos Sauerland. I'm pretty sure they could make that fight, but I just think he has a much better relationship with Hearn. I think for Billy Joe Saunders, he needs to stay put now with Hearn for the rest of his career. Even if he was to come up short against Canelo, because I think Eddie Hearn is where all the fights are. He can make the fights like that for him. And let's not forget the fight that Billy Joe Saunders has been craving for many years, and a fight that he wanted for many years. Eddie Hearn's made that. I know it's been a frustration and it never happened straight away, but let's not forget last May Eddie Hearn made the fight between Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, and because of the pandemic that fight got cancelled, right? And again, a year later, Eddie Hearn is delivered for Billy Joe Saunders. Yes, the first 1 or 1.5 years might have been frustrating, but Eddie Hearn has finally delivered the fight that Billy Joe Saunders wanted for a very long time, right? And like I said, there are other fights. That Billy Joe Saunders could have. Maybe a Golovkin fight, a Eubank fight that Eddie Hearn could make for Saunders very easily, even if he was to come up short against Canelo. So like I said, I think it would be wise for Billy Joe to stick with Eddie Hearn, because that's where all the opportunities are. I think it'll be very difficult for him if he goes back to Frank Warren, which I don't think he will, to be honest. But yeah, I think Frank Warren is telling the truth there. I think Frank Warren might be giving Billy Joe Saunders more of a chance, but that's because he doesn't have any kind of invested interest in Canelo Alvarez. So he probably wants Billy Joe Saunders to win because they had a good working relationship, and the split between Saunders and Warren was amicable. It wasn't a split where you know, they both left on bitter terms. They both left on good terms, and so Warren likes Saunders. So I think he genuinely would want him to beat Canelo. And the fact that now that Canelo's working with Eddie Hearn, he probably would love to see Saunders beat Canelo, because that would sculpture all of Hearn's plans for Canelo, and Warren would love that. So yeah, I think he's right there. I think Warren probably is giving him a better chance. But let's be honest, not many fans are giving Billy Joe Saunders a great chance. He's a huge underdog. Many people would consider this one of the biggest upsets ever if he was to pull it off. So yeah, you know, and I can understand Eddie Hearn planning ahead for Canelo. I can understand Eddie Hearn wanting Canelo to win, because financially, like I said, you know, if you were a promoter, if we were a promoter, we were Eddie Hearn, who would we want to win if we were working with both fighters? It's quite obvious as a promoter with your promoter's hat on, who you'd want to win out of Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, because you can see who's got the most financial mileage. And Saunders isn't exactly young either. Or the most important thing is Saunders isn't that big a star. You know, Canelo's a huge star, and like I said, Eddie Hearn is the type of guy that wants to break boundaries. He can't break boundaries with Saunders, because he can't do anything with Saunders that he's not already done here in the UK with Joshua. With Canelo in that region, he can break boundaries in America, because Canelo's such a big star, and in Mexico. He could do crazy things, maybe put on 150,000 stadium, look, get 150,000 fans into a stadium for a fight, you know, and Canelo's more than capable of doing that. And Hearn being the promoter, imagine, you know, you won't hear the last of it, but that's Eddie Hearn. That's why I think he's the best promoter in the world, because he's always looking to break boundaries. You know, everybody doubted him about when he you know, the DAZN first launch. Oh, Eddie's going to be a failure, and Bob Arum was saying, oh, Hearn's going to be a failure, and actually Hearn's proved everyone wrong. Now he's working with the two of the biggest stars in the sport, in Joshua and Canelo. Canelo for me is the biggest star in the sport, and he's working with Eddie Hearn. I think that in itself tells you. He's the best promoter in the world. He's got the two. He's got the two best fighters in, or not two best. What I mean is the two biggest stars in boxing. I won't call Joshua the best fighter, but yeah, he's got the two biggest stars in world boxing without question. He's got the two biggest stars in world boxing. You know, commercially the biggest stars. So yeah, he knows that he can break boundaries with both guys. So. Leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think. Do you agree with Frank Warren? Do you agree that Eddie Hearn doesn't give Billy Joe much of a chance to win that fight against Canelo? And Frank Warren is giving him more of a chance, right, than Hearn is to beating Canelo. What do you think? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. I'd love to know your opinion. And guys, remember to please like, share, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.